He didn't say anything but angled himself a little, just to help her fit more comfortably. Somewhere halfway through the talk, she realized that she had been sliding down Adam's thigh. Or, to be fair, Adam realized and lifted her up, straightening her in a firm, quick pull that made her feel like she really didn't weigh anything. Once she was stable again, he didn't move his arm from where it was snaked around her waist. The talk had been happening for 35 minutes, going on a century, so no one could blame Olive if she sank into him a little bit more. It was fine. It was more than fine, actually. It was nice. "Don't fall asleep," he murmured. She felt his lips move against the tendrils of hair above her temple. It should have been Olive's cue to straighten, but she couldn't quite make herself. "I'm not. Though you're so comfy." His fingers tightened on her, maybe to wake her up, maybe to hold her closer. She was about to melt off the chair and start snoring. "You look like you're about to take a nap." "It's just that I've read all of Tom's articles. I already know what he's saying."
"Yeah, same.
"We cited all this stuff in our grant proposal." He sighed, and she felt his body move under hers. "This is dull. Maybe you should ask a question to liven this up." Adam turned slightly to her. "Me?" She angled her head to speak in his ear. "I'm sure you can come up with something. Just raise your hand and make a mean observation with that tone of yours. Glare at him. It might devolve into an entertaining outbreak of fisticuffs." His cheek curved. "You are such a smartass." Olive looked back to the slides, smiling. "Has it been weird, having to lie to Tom about us?" Adam seemed to think about it. "No," he hesitated. "It looks like your friends are buying that we're together." "I think so. I'm not exactly a convincing liar, and sometimes I worry that I might get suspicious. But I walked in on her and Jeremy making out in the grad lounge the other day." They fell quiet and listened to the last few minutes of the talk in silence. In front of them, Olive could see at least 2 professors taking a nap and several surreptitiously working on their laptops. Next to Adam, Dr. Rodriguez had been playing Candy Crush on his phone for the past half an hour. Some people had left, and On had found a seat about 10 minutes ago. So had several of the students who had been next to Olive, which meant that she could have technically stood up and left Adam alone. Technically, there was an open chair somewhere in the third to last row. Technically. Instead, she brought her lips to Adam's ear once more and whispered, "It's working out well for me, I have to say. This whole fake dating thing. More than well. Better than she ever thought it would." Adam blinked once, and then nodded. Maybe his arm tensed a little around her. Maybe it didn't, and Olive's mind was playing tricks on her. It was starting to get late, after all. Her last coffee had been too long ago, and she wasn't fully awake, her thoughts fuzzy and relaxed. "What about you?" Adam wasn't looking at her. "Is it working for you?" It came out a little needy. Olive told herself that it was only because of how low she had to pitch her voice. "Or, do you maybe want to break up early?" He didn't reply for a second. Then, just as Dr. Moss took the mic to thank Tom and ask the audience for questions, she heard him say, "No, I don't want to break up." He really did smell good. And he was funny in a weird, deadpan way, and yes, a known ass, but friendly enough to her that she could sort of ignore that about him. Plus, he was spending a small fortune on sugar for her. Truly, she had nothing to complain about. Olive settled herself more comfortably and turned her attention back to the podium. After the talk, Olive considered walking down to the podium to compliment Tom and ask him 1 or 2 questions she already knew the answers to. Sadly, there were dozens of people waiting to speak to him, and she decided that the ass-kissing wasn't worth standing in line. So she said goodbye to Adam, waited for On to wake up from her nap while contemplating getting revenge by drawing a dick on her face, and then slowly headed with her across campus back to the biology building. "Is it going to be a lot of work?" the report Benton asked for. A fair amount. I need to run a few control studies to make my results stronger. Plus, there's other stuff I should be working on, the TAng and my poster presentation for the SBD conference in Boston. Olive bent her head back, felt the sun warm her skin, and smiled. If I hole up in the lab every night this week and the next, I should be able to finish it on time. SBD is something to look forward to, at least. Olive nodded. She usually wasn't a fan of academic conferences, given how prohibitively expensive registration, travel, and lodgings could be. But Malcolm and I were going to be at SBD, too, and Olive was excited to explore Boston with them. Plus, the interdepartmental drama that always happened at academic functions with open bars was sure to be A-plus entertainment. I am organizing this outreach event for BIPOC women in STEM from all over the country. I'm going to get PhD students like me to talk face-to-face with undergrads who are applying and reassure them that if they come to grad school, they won't be alone. This is amazing. You are amazing. I know. Winked, sliding her arm through Olive's. We can all share a hotel room and get free gadgets from the exhibit booths and get sloshed together. Remember at Human Genetics, when Malcolm got wasted and began hitting random passers-by with his poster tube? What's going on there? Olive squinted against the sun. The parking lot of the biology building was uncharacteristically jammed with traffic. People were blowing their horns and getting out of their cars, trying to figure out the source of the holdup. She and walked around a line of vehicles stuck in a lot until they ran into a group of biology grads. Someone's battery died, and it's blocking the exit line. Greg, one of Olive's lab mates, was rolling his eyes and bouncing impatiently on his feet. He pointed at a red truck stuck sideways in the most inconvenient turn. Olive recognized it as Sherry's, the department secretary. I defend my dissertation proposal tomorrow. I need to drive home to prepare. This is ridiculous. And why the fuck is Sherry just standing there, chatting leisurely with Carlson? Do they want us to bring them tea and cucumber sandwiches? Olive looked around, searching for Adam's tall frame. Oh yeah, there's Carlson, said. Olive looked where she was pointing, just in time to see Sherry get back behind the wheel and Adam jogging around the truck. What is he? Was all Olive managed to say before he came to a stop, put his hands on the back of the truck in neutral, and started pushing. His shoulders and biceps strained as Henley. The firm muscles of his upper back visibly shifted and tensed under the black fabric as he bent forward and rolled several tons of truck across quite a bit of a distance and into the closest empty parking space. Oh. There was some applause and whistling from bystanders when the truck was out of the way, and a couple of faculty members from neuroscience clapped Adam on the shoulder as the line of cars started driving out of the lot. Fucking finally, Olive heard Greg say from behind her, and she stood there, blinking a little shocked. Had she hallucinated it? Had Adam really just pushed a giant truck all by himself? Was he an alien from planet Krypton who moonlighted as a superhero? Oh well, go give him a kiss. Olive whirled around, abruptly reminded of On's existence. What? No, I'm good. I just said goodbye to him a minute ago, and... oh well, why don't you want to go kiss your boyfriend? Ugh, It's not that I don't want to. Dude, he just moved a truck. By himself. On uphill ground. He deserves a damn kiss. On shoved Olive and made a shooing motion. Olive clenched her teeth and headed in Adam's direction, wishing she'd gone ahead and drawn 20 dicks all over On's face. Maybe she did suspect that Olive was faking her relationship with Adam. Or maybe she just got a kick out of pressuring her into PDAing. That ingrate. Either way, if this was what one got for masterminding an intricate fake dating scheme that was supposed to benefit a friend's love life, then maybe. Olive halted abruptly. Adam's head was bent forward, black hair covering his forehead as he wiped the sweat from his eyes with the hem of his shirt. It left a broad strip of flesh visible on his torso, and it was nothing indecent, really, nothing unusual, just some fit guy's midriff. But for some reason, Olive couldn't help staring at Adam Carlson's uncovered skin like it was a slab of Italian marble. And, "Olive," he said, and she immediately averted her eyes. Crap, he'd totally caught her staring. First she'd forced him to kiss her, and now she was ogling him like some perv in the biology parking lot, and, "Did you need anything?" "No, She felt her cheeks go crimson. His skin, too, was flushed from the effort of pushing, and his eyes were bright and clear, and he seemed, well, at least he didn't seem unhappy to see her. "On sent me to give you a kiss." He froze halfway through wiping his hands on his shirt, and then he said, in his usual neutral, unreadable tone, "Because you moved the truck." I know how ridiculous that sounds. I know. But I didn't want her to get suspicious, and there are faculty members here, too, so maybe they'll tell the department chair, and it will be two birds with one stone, and I can leave if you. It's okay, Olive. Breathe. Right. Yes. Good suggestion. Olive did breathe, and the act made her realize that she hadn't done that in a while, which in turn made her smile up at Adam, who did his mouth twitch thing back at her. She was really starting to get used to him, to his expressions, his size, his distinctive way of being in the same space as her. "On staring at us," he said, looking over Olive's head. Olive sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. "I just bet she is," she mumbled. Adam wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. Olive squirmed. "So, should we hug or something?" "Oh." Adam looked at his hands and down at himself. "I don't think you want to do that. I'm pretty gross." Before she could stop herself, Olive studied him from head to toe, taking in his large body, his broad shoulders, the way his hair was curling around his ears. He didn't look gross. Not even to Olive, who was usually not a fan of dudes built like they spent a double-digit percentage of their time at the gym. He looked not gross. Still, maybe it was better if they didn't hug. Olive might end up doing something egregiously stupid. She should just say goodbye and leave. Yes, that was the thing to do. Except that something absolutely insane came out of her mouth. "Should we just kiss then?" she heard herself blurt out. And then she instantly wished a stray meteorite would hit the exact spot where she was standing, because had she just asked Adam Carlson for a kiss? Was that what she'd done? Was she a lunatic all of a sudden? I mean, not like a kiss-kiss, she hastened to add, but like the last time? You know. He didn't seem to know, which made sense, because their other kiss had definitely been a kiss-kiss. Olive tried not to think about it too much, but it flashed in her mind every once in a while, mostly when she was doing something important that required her utmost concentration, like implanting electrodes inside a mouse's pancreas, or trying to decide what to order at Subway. Occasionally, it would pop up during a quiet moment, like when she was in bed and about to fall asleep, and she would feel a mixture of embarrassment and incredulity and something else. Something that she had no intention of examining too closely, not now and not ever. "Are you sure?" She nodded, even though she wasn't sure at all. "Is On still staring at us?" His eyes flicked up. "Yes." "She's not even pretending not to." Why does she care so much? "Are you famous?" "No, Adam." She gestured at him. "You are." "Am I?" He looked perplexed. "Anyway, no need to kiss. You're right that it would probably be a bit weird." "No." "No, I didn't mean that." There was a droplet of sweat running down his temple, and he wiped his face again, this time with the sleeve of his shirt. "We can kiss." "Oh, if you think that. If your friend is watching." "Yeah." Olive swallowed. "But we don't have to." "I know. Unless you want to." Olive's palms felt damp and clammy, so she surreptitiously wiped them on her jeans. And by want I mean, unless you think it's a good idea. It so was not a good idea. It was a horrible idea. Like all her ideas. Right. He looked past Olive and toward On, who was probably in the middle of doing an entire Instagram story on them. Okay then. Okay. He stepped a little closer, and really, he was not gross. How someone this sweaty, someone who'd just pushed a truck, still managed to smell good was a topic worthy of a PhD dissertation for sure. Earth's finest scientists should have been hard at work on this. Why don't I? Olive inched slightly into him, and after letting her hand hover for a moment, she rested it over Adam's shoulder. She pushed up on her toes, angling her head up toward him. It helped very little, as Olive was still not tall enough to reach his mouth, so she tried to get more leverage by putting her other hand on his arm, and immediately realized that she was basically hugging him, which was the exact thing he had asked her not to do a second ago.
Crap.
Sorry, too close? I didn't mean to. She would have finished the sentence if he hadn't closed the distance between them and just kissed her.
Just like that.
It was little more than a peck, just his lips pressing against hers, and his hand on her waist to steady her a little. It was a kiss, but barely, and it certainly didn't warrant the way her heart pounded in her chest, or the fact that there was something warm and liquid looping at the bottom of her belly. Not unpleasant, but confusing and a bit scary nonetheless, and it had Olive pull back after only a second. When she eased back on her heels, it seemed like for a fraction of a moment Adam followed her, trying to fill the gap between their mouths. Though by the time she'd blinked herself free of the haze of the kiss, he was standing tall in front of her, cheekbones dusted with red and chest moving up and down in shallow breaths. She must have dreamed up that last bit. She needed to avert her eyes from him, now. And he needed to look elsewhere, too. Why were they staring at each other? Okay, she chirped. That, worked. Adam's jaw twitched, but he didn't reply. Well, then. I'm going to, She gestured behind her shoulders with her thumb. On. Yeah, to On. He swallowed heavily. Okay. Yeah. They had kissed. They had kissed twice now.
Twice.
Not that it mattered. No one cared.
But. Twice. Plus the lap.
Earlier today. Again, not that it mattered. I'll see you around, right? Next week. He lifted his fingers to his lips, then let his arm drop to his side.
Yes.
On Wednesday. It was Thursday now, which meant that they were going to see each other in 6 days. Which was fine. Olive was fine, no matter when or how often they met.
Yep.
See you wed. Hey, what about the picnic? Adam rolled his eyes, looking a little more like himself.
Right.
That foo, he stopped short. That picnic.
She grinned.
It's on Monday.
He sighed.
I know. You're still going? He gave her a look that clearly stated, it's not like I have a choice, even though I'd rather have my nails extracted one by one. With pliers. Olive laughed.
Well.
I'm going to. At least there's that. Are you bringing Tom? Probably. He actually likes people. Okay. I can network with him a bit, and you and I can show off how steady and committed we are to the department chair. You'll look like a wingless bird. No flight risk whatsoever. Perfect. I'll bring a counterfeit marriage license to casually drop at his feet. Olive laughed, waved goodbye, and then jogged up to On. She rubbed the side of her hand against her lips, as if trying to scrub her mind clean of the fact that she had just kissed Adam, Dr. Adam Carlson, for the second time in her life. Which, again, was fine. It had been barely a kiss. Not important. Well, then, On said, tucking her phone into her pocket. You really just made out in front of the biology building with Associate Professor Adam MacArthur Carlson. Olive rolled her eyes and started up the stairs. I'm pretty sure that's not his middle name. And we did not. But it was clear that you wanted to. Shut up. Why were you looking at us, anyway? I wasn't. I happened to glance up when he was about to jump you, and I just couldn't look away. Olive snorted, plugging her headphones into her phone's port.
Right.
Of course.
He's really into you.
I can tell from the way he stares at. I'm gonna listen to music very loudly now. To tune you out. You. It wasn't until much later, after Olive had been working on Tom's report for several hours, that she remembered what Adam had said when she'd told him she'd be at the picnic. At least there's that. Olive ducked her head and smiled at her toes. Chapter 7. Hypothesis. There will be a significant positive correlation between the amount of sunscreen poured in my hands and the intensity of my desire to murder on. Tom's report was about a third done and sitting tight at 34 pages single-spaced, Arial, 11 point, no justification. It was 11 a.m., and Olive had been working in the lab since about 5, analyzing peptide samples, writing down protocol notes, taking covert naps while the PCR machine ran, when Greg barged in, looking absolutely furious. It was unusual, but not too unusual. Greg was a bit of a hothead to begin with, and grad school came with a lot of angry outbursts in semi-public places, usually for reasons that Olive was fully aware would appear ridiculous to someone who'd never stepped foot in academia. They're making me TA intro to bio for the 4th time in a row. The paper I need is behind a paywall. I had a meeting with my supervisor and accidentally called her mom. Greg and Olive shared an advisor, Dr. Aslan, and while they'd always gotten along fine, they had never been particularly close. Olive had hoped, by picking a female advisor, to avoid some of the nastiness that was so often directed at women in STEM. Unfortunately, she had still found herself in an all-male lab, which was a less-than-ideal environment. That was why when Greg came in, slammed the door, and then threw a folder on his bench, Olive was not sure what to do. She watched him sit down and begin to sulk. Chase, another lab mate, followed him inside a moment later with an uneasy expression and started gingerly patting his back. Olive looked longingly at her RNA samples. Then she stepped closer to Greg's bench and asked, "What's wrong?" She had expected the answer to be the production of my reagent has been discontinued, or my p-value is 0.06, or grad school was a mistake, but now it's too late to back out of it because my self-worth is unbreakably tied to my academic performance, and what would even be left of me if I decided to drop out? Instead, what she got was, "Your stupid boyfriend is what's wrong." By now, the fake dating had been going on for over 2 weeks. Olive didn't startle anymore when someone referred to Adam as her boyfriend. Still, Greg's words were so unexpected and full of venom that she couldn't help but answer. "Who?" "Carlson." He spat the name out like a curse. "Oh. He's on Greg's dissertation committee," Chase explained in a significantly milder tone, not quite meeting Olive's eyes.
Oh.
Right. This could be bad. Very bad. What happened? He failed my proposal.
Shit.
Olive bit into her lower lip. I'm sorry, Greg. This is going to set me back a lot. It'll take me months to revise it, all because Carlson had to go and nitpick. I didn't even want him on my committee. Dr. Aslan forced me to add him because she's so obsessed with his stupid computational stuff. Olive chewed on the inside of her cheek, trying to come up with something meaningful to say and failing miserably. I'm really sorry. Olive, do you guys talk about this stuff? Chase asked out of the blue, eyeing her suspiciously. Did he tell you he wasn't going to pass Greg?
What? No.
No, I talked to him for exactly 15 minutes a week. And, okay, I've kissed him.
Twice.
And I sat on his lap.
Once.
But it's just that, and Adam, he speaks very little. I actually wish he spoke more since I know nothing about him, and I'd like to know at least something. No, he doesn't. I think it would be against regulations if he did.
God.
Greg slammed his palm against the edge of the bench, making her jump.
He's such a dick.
What a sadistic piece of shit. Olive opened her mouth to do what precisely? To defend Adam?
He was a dick. She had seen him be a dick.
In full action. Maybe not recently, and maybe not to her, but if she'd wanted to count on her fingers the number of acquaintances who'd ended up in tears because of him, well, she would need both her hands and then her toes. Maybe borrow some of Chase's, too. Did he say why, at least? What you have to change. Everything. He wants me to change my control condition and add another one, which is going to make the project 10 times more time-consuming. And the way he said it, his air of superiority. He is so arrogant.
Well.
It was no news, really. Olive scratched her temple, trying not to sigh. It sucks. I'm sorry, she repeated once more, at a loss for anything better and genuinely feeling for Greg. Yeah, well. He stood and walked around his bench, coming to a stop in front of Olive. You should be. She froze. Surely, she must have misheard. Excuse me? You're his girlfriend. I really am not.
But.
Even if she had been. Greg, I'm only dating him. I am not him. How would I have anything to do with? You're fine with all of this. With him acting like that, like an asshole on a power trip. You don't give a shit about the way he treats everyone in the program, otherwise you wouldn't be able to stomach being with him. At his tone, she took a step back. Chase lifted his hands in a peacekeeping gesture, coming to stand between them.
Hey, now.
Let's not. I'm not the one who failed you, Greg. Maybe. But you don't care that half of the department lives in terror of your boyfriend, either. Olive felt anger bubbling up. That is not true. I am able to separate my professional relationships and my personal feelings for him. Because you don't give a shit about anyone but yourself. That is unfair. What am I supposed to do? Get him to stop failing people. Get him. Olive sputtered. Greg, how is this a rational response for you to have about Adam's failing you?
Ah.
Adam, is it? She gritted her teeth.
Yes.
Adam. What should I call my boyfriend to better please you? Professor Carlson. If you were a half-decent ally to any of the grads in the department, you would just dump your fucking boyfriend. How do you even realize how little sense you are? No reason to finish her sentence, since Greg was storming out of the lab and slamming the door behind him, clearly uninterested in anything Olive might have wanted to add. She ran a hand down her face, unsettled by what had just happened. He's not. He doesn't really mean it. Not about you, at least, Chase said while scratching his head. A nice reminder that he'd been standing there in the room for the entirety of this conversation. Front row seat. It was going to take maybe 15 minutes before everyone in the program knew about it. Greg needs to graduate in the spring with his wife, so that they can find postdocs together. They don't want to live apart, you know. She nodded. She hadn't known, but she could imagine. Some of her anger dissipated. Yeah, well. Being horrible to me isn't going to make his thesis work go any faster, she didn't add.
Chase sighed.
It's not personal, but you have to understand that it's weird for us. Because Carlson. Maybe he wasn't on any of your committees, but you must know the kind of guy he is, right? She was unsure how to respond. And now you guys are dating, and Chase shrugged with a nervous smile. It shouldn't be a matter of taking sides, but sometimes it can feel like it, you know? Chase's words lingered for the rest of the day. Olive thought about them as she ran her mice through her experimental protocols, and then later while she tried to figure out what to do with those 2 outliers that made her findings tricky to interpret. She mulled it over while biking home, hot wind warming her cheeks and ruffling her hair, and while eating 2 slices of the saddest pizza ever. Malcolm had been on a health kick for weeks now, something about cultivating his gut microbiome, and refused to admit that cauliflower crust did not taste good. Among her friends, Malcolm and Jeremy had had unpleasant dealings with Adam in the past, but after the initial shock, they didn't seem to hold Olive's relationship with him against her. She hadn't concerned herself too much with the feelings of other grads. She had always been a bit of a loner, and focusing on the opinion of people she barely interacted with seemed like a wasteful use of time and energy. Still, maybe there was a glimmer of truth in what Greg had said. Adam had been anything but a jerk to Olive, but did accepting his help while he acted horribly toward her fellow grads make her a bad person? Olive lay on her unmade bed, looking up at the glow-in-the-dark stars. It had been more than 2 years since she'd borrowed Malcolm's stepladder and carefully stuck them on the ceiling. The glue was starting to give out, and the large comet in the corner by the window was going to fall off any day. Without letting herself think it through too much, she rolled out of bed and rummaged inside the pockets of her discarded jeans until she found her cell phone. She hadn't used Adam's number since he'd given it to her a few days ago. "If anything comes up or you need to cancel, just give me a call. It's quicker than an email." When she tapped the blue icon under his name, a white screen popped up, a blank slate with no history of previous messages. It gave Olive an odd rush of anxiety, so much so that she typed the text with one hand while biting the thumbnail on the other. "Olive, did you just fail Greg?" Adam was never on his phone. Never. Whenever Olive had been in his company, she'd not seen him check it even once, even though with a lab as big as his he probably got about 30 new emails every minute. Truth was, she didn't even know that he owned a cell phone. Maybe he was a weird modern-day hippie and hated technology. Maybe he'd given her his office landline number, and that's why he'd told her to call him. Maybe he didn't know how to text, which meant that Olive was never going to get an answer from. Her palm vibrated. Adam. Olive? It occurred to her that when Adam had given her his number, she'd neglected to give hers in return, which meant that he had no way of knowing who was texting him now, and the fact that he'd guessed correctly revealed an almost preternatural intuition. Damn him. Olive. Yup.
Me.
Olive. Did you fail Greg Cohen? I ran into him after his meeting. He was very upset. At me. Because of you. Because of this stupid thing we're doing. There was a pause of a minute or so, in which Olive reflected. Adam might very well be cackling evilly at the idea of all the pain he'd caused Greg. Then he answered, Adam, I can't discuss other grads' dissertation meetings with you. Olive sighed, exchanging a loaded look with the stuffed fox Malcolm had gotten her for passing her qualifying examinations. Olive, I'm not asking you to tell me anything. Greg already told me. Not to mention that I'm the one taking the heat for it, since I'm your girlfriend. Olive. Girlfriend. 3 dots appeared at the bottom of her screen. Then they disappeared, and then they appeared again, and then, finally, Olive's phone vibrated. Adam. Committees don't fail students. They fail their proposals. She snorted, half wishing he could hear her. Olive. Yeah, well. Tell it to Greg. Adam, I have. I explained the weaknesses in his study. He'll revise his proposal accordingly, and then I'll sign off on his dissertation. Olive. So you admit that you are the one behind the decision to fail him. Olive. Or whatever. To fail his proposal. Adam. Yes. In its current state, the proposal is not going to produce findings of scientific value. Olive bit the inside of her cheek, staring at her phone and wondering if continuing this conversation was a terrible idea, if what she wanted to say was too much. Then she remembered the way Greg had treated her earlier, muttered, "Fuck it," and typed, Olive, don't you think that maybe you could have delivered that feedback in a nicer way?
Adam, why?
Olive, because if you had, maybe he wouldn't be upset now. Adam, I still don't see why. Olive, Seriously? Adam, it's not my job to manage your friend's emotions. He's in a PhD program, not grade school. He'll be inundated by feedback he doesn't like for the rest of his life if he pursues academia. How he chooses to deal with it is his own business. Olive. Still, maybe you could try not to look like you enjoy delaying his graduation. Adam, this is irrational. The reason his proposal needs to be modified is that in its current state it's setting him up for failure. Me and the rest of the committee are giving him feedback that will allow him to produce useful knowledge. He is a scientist in training. He should value guidance, not be upset by it. Olive gritted her teeth as she typed her responses. Olive, you must know that you fail more people than anyone else. And your criticism is needlessly harsh. As in, immediately drop out of grad school and never look back harsh. You must know how grads perceive you. Adam, I don't. Olive, antagonistic. And unapproachable. And that was sugarcoating it. You're a dick, Olive meant. Except that I know you cannot be, and I can't figure out why you're so different with me. I'm absolutely nothing to you, so it doesn't make any sense that you'd have a personality transplant every time you're in my presence. The 3 dots at the bottom of the screen bounced for 10 seconds, 20, 30, a whole minute. Olive reread her last text and wondered if this was it, if she'd finally gone too far. Maybe he was going to remind her that being insulted over text at 9 p.m. on a Friday night was not part of their fake dating agreement. Then a blue bubble appeared, filling up her entire screen. Adam, I'm doing my job, Olive, which is not to deliver feedback in a pleasant way or to make the department grads feel good about themselves. My job is to form rigorous researchers who won't publish useless or harmful crap that will set back our field. Academia is cluttered with terrible science and mediocre scientists. I couldn't care less about how your friends perceive me, as long as their work is up to standard. If they want to drop out when told that it's not, then so be it. Not everyone has what it takes to be a scientist, and those who don't should be weeded out. She stared at her phone, hating how unfeeling and callous he sounded. The problem was, Olive understood exactly where Greg was coming from, because she'd been in similar situations. Perhaps not with Adam, but her overall experience in STEM academia had been punctuated by self-doubt, anxiety, and a sense of inferiority. She'd barely slept the 2 weeks before her qualifying exams, often wondered if her fear of public speaking was going to prevent her from having a career, and she was constantly terrified of being the stupidest person in the room. And yet, most of her time and energy was spent trying to be the best possible scientist, trying to carve a path for herself and amount to something. The idea of someone dismissing her work and her feelings this cold-heartedly cut deep, which is why her response was so immature, it was almost fetal. Olive. Well, fuck you, Adam. She immediately regretted it, but for some reason she couldn't bring herself to send an apology. It wasn't until 20 minutes later that she realized that Adam wasn't going to reply. A warning popped up on the upper part of her screen, informing her that her battery was at 5%. With a deep sigh, Olive stood up from her bed and looked around the room in search of her charger. Now go right. Got it. Malcolm's finger flicked the turn signal lever. A clicking sound filled the small car. Going right. No. Don't listen to Jeremy. Turn left. Jeremy leaned forward and swatted On's arm. Malcolm, trust me. On has never been to the farm. It's on the right. Google Maps says left. Google Maps is wrong. What do I do? Malcolm made a face in the rear-view mirror. Left?
Right?
Oh well, what do I do? In the back seat, Olive looked up from the car window and shrugged. Try right. If it's wrong, we'll just turn around. She shot on a quick, apologetic glance, but she and Jeremy were too busy mock-glaring at each other to notice. Malcolm grimaced. We'll be late. God, I hate these stupid picnics. We are, like, Olive glanced at the car's clock. 1 hour late already. I think we can add 10 minutes to that. I just hope there's some food left. Her stomach had been growling for the past 2 hours, and there was no way everyone in the car hadn't noticed. After her argument with Adam 3 days ago, she'd been tempted to just skip the picnic, hole herself up in the lab, and continue with what she had been doing the whole weekend. Ignore the fact that she had told him to fuck off, and with very little reason. She could use the time to work on Tom's report, which was proving to be trickier and more time-consuming than she'd initially thought, probably because Olive couldn't forget how much was at stake and kept rerunning analyses and agonizing over every single sentence. But she'd changed her mind last minute, telling herself that she'd promised Adam that they'd put on a show for the department chair. It would be unfair of her to back out after he'd done more than his share of the deal when it came to convincing On. That was, of course, in the very unlikely case that he still wanted anything to do with Olive. Don't worry, Malcolm, On said. We'll get there eventually. If anyone asks, let's just say that a mountain lion attacked us. God, why is it so hot? I brought sunblock, by the way. SPF 30 and 50. No one is going anywhere before putting it on. In the back seat, Olive and Jeremy exchanged a resigned look, well acquainted with On's sunscreen obsession. The picnic was in full swing when they finally arrived, as crowded as most academic events with free food. Olive made a beeline for the tables and waved at Dr. Aslan, who was sitting in the shade of a giant oak with other faculty members. Dr. Aslan waved back, no doubt pleased to note that her authority extended to commandeering her grads' free time on top of the 80 hours a week they already spent in the lab. Olive smiled weakly in a valiant attempt not to look resentful, grabbed a cluster of white grapes, and popped one into her mouth while letting her gaze wander around the fields. On was right. This September was uncommonly hot. There were people everywhere, sitting on the lawn chairs, lying down in the grass, walking in and out of the barns, all enjoying the weather. A few were eating from plastic plates on folding tables close to the main house, and there were at least 3 games going on: a version of volleyball with the players standing in a circle, a soccer match, and something that involved a frisbee and over a dozen half-dressed dudes. What are they even playing? Olive asked On. She spotted Dr. Rodriguez tackle someone from immunology and looked back to the almost empty tables, cringing. Slim pickings was all that was left. Olive wanted a sandwich, a bag of chips, anything. Ultimate frisbee, I think. I don't know. Did you put on sunblock? You're wearing a tank top and shorts, so you really should. Olive bit into another grape. You Americans and your fake sports. I'm pretty sure there are Canadian tournaments of ultimate frisbee, too. You know what's not fake. What? Melanoma. Put on some sunscreen. I will, Mom. Olive smiled. Can I eat first? Eat what? There's nothing left. Oh, there's some cornbread over there. Oh, cool. Pass it over. Don't eat the cornbread, guys. Jeremy's head popped up between Olive and On. Jess said that a pharmacology first year sneezed all over it. Where did Malcolm go? Parking? Holy shit. Olive looked up from her perusal of the table, alarmed by the urgency in On's tone. What? Just holy shit. Yeah, what? Holy shit. You mentioned that already, because holy shit. She glanced around, trying to figure out what was going on. What is... Oh, there's Malcolm. Maybe he found something to eat. Is that Carlson? Olive was already walking toward Malcolm to find something edible and skip the whole sunscreen nonsense altogether. But when she heard Adam's name, she stopped dead in her tracks. Or maybe it wasn't Adam's name, but the way On was saying it. What? Where? Jeremy pointed at the ultimate frisbee crowd. That's him, right? Shirtless. Holy shit, On repeated, her vocabulary suddenly pretty limited. given her 20-something years of education. Is that a 6-pack? Jeremy blinked. Might even be an 8-pack. Are those his real shoulders?
An asked.
Did he have shoulder enhancement surgery? That must be how he used the MacArthur grant, Jeremy said. I don't think shoulders like that exist in nature. God, is that Carlson's chest? Malcolm leaned his chin over Olive's shoulder. Was that thing under his shirt while he was ripping my dissertation proposal a new one?
OL.
Why didn't you say that he was shredded? Olive just stood there, rooted to the ground, arms dangling uselessly at her sides. Because I didn't know. Because I had no idea. Or maybe she had, a bit, from seeing him push that truck the other day, though she'd been trying to suppress that particular mental image. Unbelievable. An pulled Olive's hand toward herself, overturning it to squirt a healthy dose of lotion on her palm. Here, put this on your shoulders. And your legs. And your face, too. You're probably at high risk for all sorts of skin stuff. Freckles Mac Freckleface. To you too. Olive nodded numbly and began to massage the sunscreen into her arms and thighs. She breathed in the smell of coconut oil, trying hard not to think about Adam and about the fact that he really did look like that. Mostly failing, but hey, are there actual studies? Jeremy asked. An was pulling her hair up in a bun. On the link between freckles and skin cancer. I don't know. Feels like there would be.
True.
I want to know now. Hold on. Is there Wi-Fi here? Oh well, do you have internet? Olive wiped her hands on a napkin that looked mostly unused. I left my phone in Malcolm's car. She turned her head away from An and Jeremy, who were now studying the screen of Jeremy's iPhone, until she had a good view of the ultimate frisbee group, 14 men and 0 women. It probably had to do with the general excess of testosterone in STEM programs. At least half the players were faculty or postdocs. Adam, of course, and Tom, and Dr. Rodriguez, and several others from pharmacology. All equally shirtless. Though no, not equal at all. There was really nothing equal about Adam. Olive wasn't like this. She really was not. She could count the number of guys she'd been this viscerally attracted to on one hand. Actually, on one finger. And at the moment said guy was running toward her, because Tom Benton, bless his heart, had just thrown the frisbee away too clumsily, and it was now in a patch of grass approximately 10 feet from Olive. And Adam, shirtless Adam, just happened to be the one closest to where it landed. Oh, check out this paper. Jeremy sounded excited. Khaleesi et al., 2013. It's a meta-analysis. Cutaneous markers of photo damage and risk of basal cell carcinoma of the skin. In cancer epidemiology, biomarkers, and prevention. Jeremy fist-pumped. Olive, are you listening to this?
Nope. No, she was not.
She was mostly trying to empty her brain and her eyes, too, of her fake boyfriend and the sudden warm ache in her stomach. She just wished she were elsewhere, that she were temporarily blind and deaf. Hear this. Solar lentiginase had weak but positive associations with basal cell carcinoma, with odds ratios around 1.5. Okay, I don't like this. Jeremy, hold the phone. I'm giving Olive more sunscreen. Here's SPF 50. It's probably what you need. Olive tore her eyes from Adam's chest, now alarmingly close, and turned around, stepping away from An.
Wait.
I already put some on. Oh well, An told her, with that sensible, motherly tone she used whenever Olive slipped, and confessed that she mostly got her veggie servings from French fries, or that she washed her colors and whites in the same load. You know the literature. I do not know the literature, and neither do you. You just know one line from one abstract, and... An grabbed Olive's hand again and poured half a gallon of lotion in it. So much of it that Olive had to use her left palm to prevent it from spilling over, until she was just standing there like an idiot, her hands cupped like a beggar as she half drowned in goddamn sunscreen. Here you go. An smiled brightly. Now you can protect yourself from basal cell carcinoma. Which, frankly, sounds awful. Olive would have facepalmed if she'd had the freedom to move her upper limbs. I hate sunscreen. It's sticky, and it makes me smell like a pina colada, and this is way too much. Just put on as much as your skin will absorb, especially around the freckled areas. The rest you can share with someone. Okay, then you take some. You too, Jeremy. You're a ginger, for God's sake. A redhead with no freckles, though. He smiled proudly, like he'd created his genotype all on his own. And I already put on a ton. Thanks, babe. He leaned down for a brief kiss to An's cheek, which almost evolved into a makeout session. Olive tried not to sigh. Guys, what do I do with this? Just find someone else. Where did Malcolm go? Jeremy snorted. Over there with Jude. Jude. An frowned. Yeah, that neuro fifth year. The MD PhD? Are they dating or? Guys. It took Olive all she had not to yell. I have no mobility. Please, fix this sunscreen mess you created. God, OL. An rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic sometimes. Hang on. She waved at someone behind Olive, and when she spoke, her voice was much louder. Hey, Dr. Carlson. Have you put on sunscreen yet? In the span of a microsecond, Olive's entire brain burst into flames and then crumbled into a pile of ashes. Just like that, 100 billion neurons, 1,000 billion glial cells, and who knew how many milliliters of cerebrospinal fluid just ceased to exist. The rest of her body was not doing very well either, since Olive could feel all her organs shut down in real time. From the very beginning of her acquaintance with Adam, there had been about 10 instances of Olive wishing to drop dead on the spot, for the earth to open and swallow her whole, for a cataclysm to hit and spare her from the embarrassment of their interactions. This time, though, it felt as though the end of the world might happen for real. Don't turn around, what's left of her central nervous system told her.
Pretend you didn't hear An.
Will this into non-existence. But it was impossible. There was this triangle of sorts, formed by Olive and An in front of her, and Adam probably, surely, standing behind her. It wasn't as if Olive had a choice. Any choice. Especially when Adam, who couldn't possibly imagine the depraved direction of An's thoughts, who couldn't possibly see the bucketful of sunscreen that had taken residence in Olive's hands, said, No.
Well, shit.
Olive spun around, and there he was, sweaty, holding a frisbee in his left hand, and so very, very shirtless. Perfect, then, An said, sounding so chipper. Olive has way too much, and was wondering what to do with it. She'll put some on you.
No. No, no, no.
I can't, she hissed at An. It would be highly inappropriate. Why? An blinked at her innocently. I put sunscreen on Jeremy all the time. Look, she squirted lotion on her hand and haphazardly slapped it across Jeremy's face. I am putting sunscreen on my boyfriend. Because I don't want him to get melanoma. Am I inappropriate? Olive was going to murder her. Olive was going to make her lick every drop of this stupid sunscreen and watch her writhe in pain as she slowly died of oxybenzone poisoning. Later, though. For now, Adam was looking at her, expression completely unreadable, and Olive would have apologized. She would have crawled under the table. She would have at least waved at him. But all she could do was stare and notice that even though the last time they talked she'd insulted him, he didn't really seem angry. Just thoughtful and a little confused as he looked between Olive's face and the small lake of white goop that now lived in her hands, probably trying to figure out if there was a way to get out of this latest shit show, and then, finally, just giving up on it. He nodded once, minutely, and turned around. the muscles in his back shifting as he threw Dr. Rodriguez the frisbee and yelled, "I'm taking 5," which Olive assumed meant that they were actually doing this. Of course they damn were. Because this was her life, and these were her poor, moronic, harebrained choices. "Hey," Adam said to her once they were closer. He was looking at her hands, at the way she had to hold them in front of her body, like a supplicant. Behind her, Ann and Jeremy were no doubt ogling them. "Hey." She was wearing flip-flops and he had sneakers on, and he was always tall, but right now he towered over her. It put her eyes right in front of his pecs. And,
No. Nope.
"Not doing that. Can you turn around?" He hesitated for a moment, but then he did, uncharacteristically obedient, which ended up resolving none of Olive's problems, since his back was in no way less broad or impressive than his chest. "Can you, duck a bit?" Adam bent his head until his shoulders were still abnormally high, but somewhat easier to reach. As she lifted her right hand, some of the lotion dripped to the ground. Where it belongs, she thought savagely, and then she was doing it, this thing that she had never thought she would ever do. Putting sunscreen on Adam Carlson. It wasn't her first time touching him. Therefore, she shouldn't have been surprised by how hard his muscles were, or that there was no give to his flesh. Olive remembered the way he'd pushed the truck, imagined that he could probably bench press 3 times her weight, and then ordered herself to stop, because that was not an appropriate train of thought. Still, the issue remained that there was nothing between her hand and his skin. He was hot from the sun, his shoulders relaxed, and immobile under her touch. Even in public, close as they were, it felt like something intimate was happening. So, her mouth was dry. This might be a good time to mention how sorry I am that we keep getting stuck in these situations. "It's fine. I really am, though. It's not your fault." There was an edge in his voice. "Are you okay?" "Yep." He nodded, though the movement seemed taut, which had Olive realizing that maybe he was not as relaxed as she'd initially thought. "How much do you hate this? On a scale from 1 to correlation equals causation." He surprised her by chuckling, though he still sounded strained. "I don't hate it, and it's not your fault. Because I know this is the worst possible thing, and it isn't, Olive." He turned a bit to look her in the eyes, a mix of amusement and that odd tension. "These things are going to keep on happening, right?" His fingers brushed softly against her left palm as he stole a bit of her sunscreen for his front, which, all in all, was for the best. She really didn't want to be massaging lotion into his chest in front of 70% of her PhD program, not to mention her boss, since Dr. Aslan was probably watching them like a hawk. Or maybe she wasn't. Olive had no intention of turning around to check. She'd rather live in less than blissful ignorance. Mostly because you hang out with some really nosy people. She burst out laughing. "I know. Believe me, I'm really regretting befriending On right now. Kind of contemplating assassinating her, to tell the truth." She moved to his shoulder blades. He had a lot of small moles and freckles, and she wondered exactly how inappropriate it would be if she played connect the dots on them with her fingers. She could just imagine the amazing pictures it would reveal. But hey, the long-term benefits of sunscreen have been proven by scientists. "And you are pretty pale. Here, duck a bit more so I can get your neck." She walked around him to get to the front part of his shoulders. He was so big, she was going to have to use all this stupid lotion. Might even need to ask On for more. At least the department chair is getting a show. And you look like you're having fun. He glanced pointedly at the way her hand was spreading sunscreen on his collarbone. Olive's cheeks burned. "No, I mean, not because I am. I meant, you look like you're having a good time playing frisbee. Or whatever." He made a face. "Beats chit-chatting, for sure." She laughed. That makes sense. I bet that's why you're so fit. You played lots of sports growing up because it got you out of talking with people. It also explains why now that you're an adult your personality is so. Olive stopped short. Adam lifted one eyebrow. Antagonistic and unapproachable?
Crap.
I didn't say that.